for the
what
sir?
specific discussions and actions were taken between the time the first flood emergency alert came in at 1:14 a.m. and then when the river first started flooding homes hours later? What were the specific actions and discussions that happened in those hours?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure, absolutely. I would like to know if you could outline, please, what the specific actions and discussions were that local officials took between 1:14 a.m., that's when the first flood emergency alert came out, and hours later when the river first started flooding. What happened in those hours?
What I can tell you, when I was first notified, it was around the 4 to 5 area. One of my sergeants was in dispatch when the first calls started coming in, the actual 911 calls come in.
Like at 4 in the morning?
It was between 4 or 5 when I got notified. Okay, but prior to that, in that 3 to 4 area, my understanding is, and we're in the process of trying to put a timeline. You know, that's going to take a little bit of time. As I've told you several times, that is not my priority this time. There's 3 priorities. That's locating the people out there, identifying and notifying the next of kin. That is what I'm taking as my job as sheriff here to do. Okay.
With all due respect, sir, I think that the community here is asking these questions. What happened? When did it happen? Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button, okay? There's a lot more to that. And we've told you several times.
So did it happen, sir?
I can't tell you at this time,
You
okay?
can't tell me if the emergency manager of the county actually issued an emergency
Sheriff,
alert.
okay, Sheriff, who is
Shimon, just give me a second.
the Emergency Operations Center? Who
Let him
runs
answer the question.
the Emergency Operations
I'll come back to you.
Center?
I ain't going nowhere.
Appreciate it.
Who runs the Emergency Operations Center?
We have a communication center, a dispatch, okay? We have a communication center. That's where the calls actually go to the police department, then they're forwarded to us.
But leading up to this, in monitoring the weather, there's, in any large city, in any state, there's an Office of Emergency Management that is monitoring the weather, that is watching and listening and getting briefings. Who was getting those briefings in this city, in this county? Who was receiving that information, and who would have ultimately made the decision to evacuate, hearing what was coming in from the Weather Service and other people?
Okay, what we would have done when we get notified, okay, I'm gonna tell you.
You're not emergency management, though, right? The sheriff's not EOC.
No, there is no, I meant as the city, yeah, I'll make that.
So we understand you have many questions. Hang on.
No, I understand, but you're not gonna answer the question because that's up to the city manager and the mayor to answer those
Correct.
It's the
questions.
county emergency.
We understand you have
Judge,
many
where is
questions.
the judge? The judge is not here.
We understand that, but right now, this team up here is focused on bringing
We
people
understand that too,
home.
but there are a number
That's
of
our focus.
questions that are
All those
leading up to
questions
this.
will be answered, but the priority right now
It seems like you're done
is
being
bringing
the-
people home.
We totally understand that, and we value the incredible work that is being done by those first responders. We're seeing them out there muddy and sweaty and grinding it out day after day. But your community is asking these questions.
And we will
Was
get
our emergency
answers.
manager in the county
Right now,
awake at
all
the
of our
time?
resources are
Did they issue an
focused
alert?
Should be able
to
answer.
recovery.
I want to now bring in CNN Shimon Prokupecz, who you heard asking questions there. Shimon, you have spent a lot of time in Texas asking questions about
Yes, I
tragedies. Obviously, you spent months and months, even longer than that, in Uvalde, a very different kind of tragedy than what we're seeing right now. That was a gunman. This is Mother Nature. But the answers that people want are very similar, and that is what happened. Is there accountability? It is also understandable that you see the Guadalupe River behind you, Shimon. It is still relatively early after this tragedy began, and that there is still a recovery effort going on. The balance is important, but the questions are still there.
No, the balance is important, and no one goes into these press conferences trying to disrespect the work of law enforcement, the emergency workers. This is really difficult work, and keep in mind, you know, they're dealing with dead bodies, they're dealing with dead children. It's horrific, and so that is all very understandable, and no one wants to disrespect that process. But the bottom line is there are some questions here that need to be answered about how well the county and the city were prepared for this event, and how well experienced are they, the people that are in the decision-making seat, the people that are sitting at the table. at City Hall, at the government here, how experienced are they to make a decision when there are warning signs of a potential life-threatening storm, life-threatening weather that's moving through the area? Are they experienced enough to make the decision to say, let's go, we need to evacuate these areas, or at least we need to go tell people you may want to leave? That's a heavy burden on someone, and it's a big responsibility. You know, I live in New York City, you live in Washington, D.C. Anytime there's some kind of a weather event, not only are we getting alerts on our phones, but city officials are out there saying, hey, this is coming, be warned. And if they can't reach certain communities, they send the sheriff, they send the city police to the areas to let them know. So that's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out who was sitting in that position at the time to make these decisions. And so here's more, Dana, of my exchange with the city officials here, some of the government officials, in trying to figure out who exactly was in charge here.
Who runs the Emergency Operations Center?
We have a communication center, a dispatch, okay? We have a communication center. That's where the calls actually go to the police department, then they're forwarded to
Right,
us.
but leading up to this, in monitoring the weather, there is, in any large city, in any state, there's an Office of Emergency Management that is monitoring the weather, that is watching and listening and getting briefings. Who was getting those briefings in this city, in this county? Who was receiving that information? And who would have ultimately made the decision to evacuate, hearing what was coming in from the Weather Service and other?
Okay, well, we would have done, when we get notified, okay, I'm gonna tell you.
You're not emergency management though, right? The sheriff's not EOC.
No, there is
Who
no,
is
I meant
EOC?
as the city. Yeah. help me with that.
So we understand you have many questions.
Right.
Hang on.
No, I understand, but you're not gonna answer the question because that's up to the city manager and the mayor to answer those
Correct.
It's the
questions.
county emergency.
We understand you
That's
have
the
many
judge. Where is the
questions.
judge? The judge is not here.
We understand that, but right now, this team up here is focused on bringing
We
people
understand that
home.
too, but there are a number
That's
of
our focus.
questions that are
All
leading
those
up to
questions
this.
will be answered, but the priority right now
It seems like you're
is
ducking
bringing
the-
people home.
We totally understand that, and we value the incredible work that is being done by those first responders. We're seeing them out there muddy and sweaty and grinding it out day after day. But your community is asking these questions.
And we will
Was
we
there
will
an
get
emergency
answers.
manager in the county
Right
to
now,
make at
all
the
of our
time?
resources are focused
You should be able to
to
answer
recovery.
who was in charge of the Emergency Operations Center at the time that was getting any briefings.
Do we have
And Dana, how this works in Texas, it's usually up to the county judge. There's a county judge who sort of oversees so much of the decisions and the emergency operations decisions. That county judge has not been at the press conference. He was not there today. I think he was in some of the briefings earlier, in the days earlier, but certainly was not there today. And you heard their officials saying that there is no, as far as he knows, there's no emergency operations center here in the city here, in the fact that someone in the city would be making those decisions. That's according, I believe that was the sheriff speaking. But obviously then it falls on the county, right? And that's some of what our reporting has shown, that a lot of the decision making here would have been on the county. But still, the other thing, what's so interesting here is that you have the sheriff there who said the first time that he knew something was wrong was around 4 a.m. And then the city manager for Kerrville realizes that something is wrong when he goes for a run at 3 in the morning. And by the time he gets home, he sees the water start to rise and he realizes, oh man, this is going to be a problem. So obviously, Dana, there's a lot of questions here about who was in charge, who was in a position to make potentially life-saving decisions.
If there's anybody who can get the answers to those questions, it's you, Shimon. Thank you for popping up with us. And again, I just want to emphasize and underscore what you and the fellow reporters at that press conference were also underscoring, that this is in no way suggesting that there is not massive grief going on there. But part of grief is getting answers, and that is what the job is of you and our colleagues there on the ground. Shimon, thank you so much. Appreciate it.